I hadn't even been back in the state for a full day when I saw the cabins. My name's Vance Ellery, and 2 weeks ago, I inherited my late uncle's ranch out in Pine Hollow. He passed peacefully, left the land to me in his will. It was a good chunk of property, quiet, surrounded by woods, no neighbors for miles. Or so I thought. The moment I pulled up the gravel road to the main house, I spotted something that made me hit the brakes hard: 3 shiny log cabins sitting on the south end of the property. New construction. With little decorative signs that said things like Whitetail Retreat and Lakeside Nest. I got out of my truck, walked down the hill, and sure enough, each cabin had a keypad door lock, fresh mulch, and even laminated guest instructions posted inside the windows, like full-on vacation rentals. That's when I noticed the laminated sign nailed to a tree near the driveway. Welcome to Cedar Ridge HOA Cabins. Managed by Cedar Ridge HOA, Inc. I stood there for a full minute, just blinking like an idiot. I didn't even live in a neighborhood. I marched back up to the main house, unlocked the door, and found my uncle's old safe in the back office. Inside were the original land deeds. Every inch of the ranch, over 50 acres, was his. No co-owners, no easements, no leases, just him. And now me. That same afternoon, a white SUV pulled up outside. A middle-aged woman with a tight bun and too much perfume marched straight up to the porch like she owned the place. "You must be Vance," she said, not waiting for me to respond. "I'm Gayla Covington, president of the Cedar Ridge Homeowners Association. I need you to vacate this property immediately until we sort out your trespassing." I blinked. "Trespassing? This is my land," she snorted. "That's a bold claim, considering those cabins are HOA property." I held up the deed. "You mean these cabins, built on my land?" Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't flinch. "This land was deemed common recreational space by the HOA 3 years ago. Your uncle signed off on it." "No, he didn't," I said. "He was in hospice 3 years ago, and that man couldn't lift a pen by then." She waved a hand like I was boring her. "Well, the board voted. We had majority approval. The cabins are legally registered." "Registered with who?" I asked. She smiled like a snake. "The county zoning office, and before you ask, yes, we have permits." I didn't say another word. I just went back inside, grabbed my phone, and called the zoning office myself. A guy named Travis answered. I told him what I'd found. There was a long pause on the line. "Sir," Travis said, "according to our records, those cabins are built on Cedar Ridge HOA's land. That parcel doesn't match the one you just described." I told him to check again. I gave every detail from the deed down to the coordinates. He went quiet for a full 2 minutes. "Well, that's strange," he finally said. "Looks like someone submitted a boundary adjustment 3 years ago, but the signature on it isn't your uncle's. It's, hang on, Gayla Covington." I felt my stomach drop. She'd forged it, or someone had. Either way, the HOA had illegally redrawn property lines, built rentals on my late uncle's ranch, and had been profiting ever since. And they had no idea I was about to burn their little empire to the ground. HOA story, HOA stories, Homeowners Association stories. I wasn't about to let Gayla walk off my land like she hadn't just threatened me with eviction. As soon as she turned her back and started toward her car, I said loud enough for her to hear, "By the way, I just got off the phone with the zoning office." She froze mid-step. "They said your name's on a boundary adjustment request," I continued. "Dated 3 years ago, the signature on it doesn't match my uncle's records, or his handwriting." She pivoted slowly, her eyes unreadable now. "Then I suggest you take it up with the county, Mr. Ellery. Until then, we expect full cooperation as outlined in our community charter." "There is no charter," I said. "There's no HOA here." She didn't answer that. She just got in her SUV and drove off, gravel spitting under her tires. The next morning, I drove straight to the county clerk's office. I didn't call ahead. I wanted paper copies in my hands, not polite phone shrugs. The clerk, a soft-spoken guy named Marshall, pulled the land records at my request. It took him 20 minutes to find the boundary change filing. He handed me the form, an official-looking document with a printed legal description and a scrawled signature. "This is supposed to be my uncle's," I asked. He nodded. "That's what was submitted." "I'm going to need a certified copy of this," I said. He printed it, stamped it, and slid it across the counter. I tucked it into a folder, then asked, "Who notarized it?" Marshall flipped through the document. Looks like it was notarized by a Denise Covington." I raised my eyebrows. "Any relation to Gayla?" He shrugged. "Couldn't say, but I can give you her notary registration." He did. I thanked him and headed straight to the sheriff's department. The deputy at the front desk took one look at the documents and called for his supervisor. Within minutes, I was sitting across from Detective Lynch, a grizzled man in his 50s with heavy eyelids and a slow drawl. "So you're saying someone forged your uncle's signature and used that to redraw the property lines?" he asked, flipping through the pages. "And built rental cabins that have been generating income ever since," I said. "On land that was never theirs." He leaned back. "You got proof your uncle didn't sign this?" My uncle had Parkinson's for the last 5 years of his life. By the date on that form, he couldn't even hold a fork. Lynch nodded slowly, then picked up the phone. "Let me run this past the DA's office. If that notary's related to the party who profited, we may be looking at fraud and conspiracy." While he made the call, I stepped outside and dialed my friend Erica. She worked as a real estate attorney in Denver and owed me a favor from years back when I helped her ex move out in the middle of the night. When I explained the situation, she didn't even hesitate. "Send me everything. I'll check the title insurance filings, see if there's a paper trail on those cabins. If they've been collecting rental fees, someone's reporting it to the IRS or laundering it." That night, I camped out in the ranch house's back office, scanning every letter, receipt, and utility bill my uncle had kept. I found a yellowing envelope postmarked 2 years ago with the Cedar Ridge HOA's name. Inside, a printed notice demanding he cease personal use of recreational structures and respect collective ownership. It was unsigned, no letterhead, no contact information beyond a P.O. box. Erica called at midnight. "You're going to love this," she said. "The cabins are listed under a shell LLC named Pine Haven Management. Guess who the registered agent is? Don't tell me. Gayla Covington. And get this, she started the LLC 4 months after the forged boundary adjustment." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling fan. "So she redrew the lines, built cabins, rerouted utilities, and funneled profits through a shell company, more or less. And none of this would have been possible without someone in the zoning office either overlooking it or helping. Travis didn't seem like he was in on it. Keep him close, then. You're going to need someone inside when this blows open." The next morning, I didn't wait for trouble to come knocking. I went to the cabins myself, first stop, the one labeled Whitetail Retreat. I knocked twice, then opened the door. It was empty. Clean linens, fresh towels, a welcome basket on the counter with 2 bottles of wine and a printed check-in guide. Someone expected guests. I walked the perimeter, took photos of everything: the electric meters, the Wi-Fi routers labeled Cedar Ridge Guest, even the tiny fire pits in the back. Then I moved on to the next one. By the time I reached the 3rd cabin, a rusted golf cart came whining up the hill. A man in a neon green polo and wraparound sunglasses parked beside me. "You can't be here," he said, hopping out. "These are reserved." "For who?" I asked. He pulled out a clipboard. "Guests. This one's got a 2-night stay starting today." I crossed my arms. "Who are you?" "Property manager." "Name's Darren." "Who hired you?" He didn't answer right away. "Cedar Ridge HOA. You ever meet the landowner?" He blinked. "Gayla's the landowner?" "No," I said, stepping closer. "I am." He fumbled for his phone, but I was already pulling mine out. "You're going to want to stop accepting bookings. These cabins were built on stolen land, and I've got the deed, the fraud report, and a lawyer on the case." He stepped back. I didn't know anything about that." Then I suggest you tell your boss to come clean before the sheriff shows up." That afternoon, I returned to the sheriff's office. Detective Lynch looked up from his desk as I walked in. "Just got off the phone with the DA," he said. "They're drafting a warrant for the notary's records. If that signature doesn't match state records, we're moving forward with charges." "Good," I said, "because I just found out she's been profiting off stolen land for over 2 years." He leaned forward. "We're going to need financials. Rental income, bank transfers, anything that shows she personally benefited. I've got a lawyer digging into the LLC, but I can tell you this: there's a guest checking in tonight. If we move now, we can catch them mid-rental." He scratched his chin. "We'll coordinate with zoning. If there's evidence of fraudulent permits, this could escalate." That night, I stayed up documenting everything: photos, time-stamped videos, correspondence from the fake HOA, even screenshots of the rental listings still active on short-term booking platforms. Just before sunrise, Erica sent me an email with a spreadsheet. 2 years of rental income from Pine Haven Management, totaling over $130,000. All routed through a business account under Gayla's name. That was the final piece. By noon, a county inspector, 2 sheriff's deputies, and a zoning officer were parked outside the cabins. I stood beside them with my folder of documents as they taped off the area and posted cease and desist orders on each cabin's door. Gayla showed up 10 minutes later, red-faced and furious. "You have no right," she began. The deputy held up a hand. "Ma'am, step back. This is an active investigation." She turned to me, eyes blazing. "This is harassment." "No," I said, "this is restitution. And you're about to have a very long conversation with the district attorney." She didn't respond. She just stood there, watching as the last cabin door was locked and sealed. For the first time since I'd arrived, she looked uncertain, and I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The county prosecutor's office moved quickly once the financial trail was confirmed. Within 48 hours of the shutdown, Gayla Covington was served with a subpoena to appear before the Property Fraud Task Force. But what no one had expected, what even Lynch hadn't predicted, was what came tumbling out when the investigators started tracing the contractor payments tied to the cabin construction. I got the call from Erica while I was in the barn organizing my uncle's old tools. "They found something ugly," she said, her voice clipped. "The LLC Gayla used to funnel rental income. It made payments to a contracting firm that doesn't exist, but the tax ID attached to it is real and it belongs to a man who died 4 years ago." I dropped the wrench I was holding. "You're telling me she used the identity of a dead contractor?" "Not just that. The payments were funneled from the HOA's reserve account, which means she used HOA dues, real residents' money, to cover construction costs on property she didn't own." I paced to the hayloft, trying to process it. "So she stole money from her own neighborhood to build cabins on my land, then funneled the profits through a fake vendor using a dead man's identity. That's felony embezzlement and wire fraud and identity theft." "Good," I said. "Let them bury her with it." But Gayla wasn't going down without a show. The very next day, a man in a blue blazer and loafers showed up on my porch with a clipboard and an oily smile. "Mr. Ellery, I'm here on behalf of Cedar Ridge HOA's legal counsel. We're requesting a formal review of land ownership based on historical plat interpretations." "No," I said, not even pretending to entertain the notion. "You're trespassing. Get off my steps." He gestured to a manila envelope he hadn't yet handed me. "There's a motion being filed to initiate a quiet title action to contest your ownership." I didn't touch the envelope. "That motion will be dead on arrival. Your client defrauded the county, forged a boundary change, and stole from her own neighbors. Unless you want to be part of that fallout, I suggest you stop playing courier." He hesitated, then turned and walked off the porch. I watched him drive back down the hill without a word. I had no intention of opening that envelope. Let the court serve me directly if they had the spine for it. Later that evening, Travis from the zoning office pulled up in an old Ford pickup. He stepped out holding a rolled-up map case and a notepad. "I figured you'd want to see something," he said, spreading the old county maps across my dining table. "This is the original plat from when your uncle bought the land. No HOA anywhere near it, but look, 3 years ago this overlay was submitted. See the extension?" He pointed to a shaded section that wrapped around the bottom of the property like a hook. "That's where the cabins sit," he said. It was slipped into the zoning database after hours. The timestamp on the upload was 2:43 a.m. on a Sunday. Who has access to do that? Only 2 admins. One of them retired last year. The other still works in the office, and I'm not naming names, but I've already reported it. I leaned over the map. "You think Gala bribed someone," he shrugged, "or threatened them. But here's the kicker: this overlay was never filed with the state recorder's office. It's not legally binding. Just a digital ghost. So the cabins were built on nothing but smoke and nerve. Pretty much. But now that the DA's involved, it'll all come out." That night, I stayed up filing an official civil suit. Erica helped draft the complaint: illegal encroachment, fraudulent leasing, unjust enrichment, and quiet title confirmation. We requested a full audit of Cedar Ridge HOA's financials and bank accounts. By the end of the week, the sheriff's office had executed a search warrant on Gala's home. Deputies emerged carrying boxes of documents, a desktop tower, and 2 briefcases. One of the neighbors filmed it and posted it on social media. By morning, the video had over 20,000 views and the comments were brutal. "She charged me a late fee for putting my bin out an hour early and she was embezzling. Unreal. She once told me my front porch chairs weren't aesthetic. Meanwhile, she's running a scam hotel. Can we vote her out? Or is she going to jail first?" At the same time, I started getting visits from Cedar Ridge homeowners. First came a couple in their 60s, the Kavanaughs. They brought a peach cobbler and an apology. "We had no idea what she was doing," Mrs. Kavanaugh said, wringing her hands. "She told us the cabins were part of a community investment plan. She used our dues to pay for it," her husband added. "She even raised them last year, said it was for landscaping." I asked if they had records of that. They did. They'd kept every HOA newsletter and billing statement. I scanned them all that night and sent them to Erica. Over the next 4 days, 5 more residents came forward. Most had stories of intimidation, threats of fines, revoked pool access, invasive inspections. One man, a former Marine named Bryce, showed me a letter Gala had sent him after he refused to sign a community petition. "Failure to support neighborhood cohesion will result in reconsideration of your voting privileges," I read aloud. "She tried to strip my vote," Bryce said, "over a petition. That's not leadership. That's a dictator in a pantsuit." The pieces were falling together fast. Erica filed a motion to freeze the HOA's accounts pending a forensic audit. The judge approved it the next morning. That's when things got strange. My ranch's mailbox was smashed in with a baseball bat. Then the power to the main house cut out. Someone had flipped the exterior breaker in the middle of the night. On the 3rd night, I caught movement on my trail cam near the cabins. 2 figures, hoodies. One carrying a gas can. I didn't wait. I called it in, grabbed my shotgun, and stood on the porch until the deputies arrived 10 minutes later. They took the footage and posted a patrol unit at the end of the driveway. The next day, Gala's attorney filed a motion to withdraw from her case. "She's not cooperating," Erica said, reading the filing. "He says she's withholding documents and refusing to attend prep meetings." That same afternoon, the county clerk emailed me. The notary license for Denise Covington, Gala's cousin, had been permanently revoked. Her signature on the boundary adjustment had been confirmed as fraudulent. With that, the DA escalated the case. Conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, misappropriation of public funds, and falsification of legal documents. Gala was arrested in front of the Cedar Ridge Community Center during their monthly meeting. The video was even better than the first. She tried to protest, claiming political bias, but the deputies didn't flinch. They cuffed her, read the charges, and led her into the cruiser in front of a silent crowd. As the tail lights disappeared, someone in the back of the gathering clapped once, then twice. Then the whole crowd joined in. I didn't attend the next HOA meeting, but a week later, a new letter arrived in the mail. It wasn't on Cedar Ridge letterhead. It was handwritten. Dear Mr. Ellery, we, the undersigned residents of Cedar Ridge, would like to formally apologize for the actions of our former HOA president. We had no knowledge of her misconduct and are now working with an interim committee to dismantle all illegal structures and return any misused funds. We understand if you choose not to forgive us, but please know many of us were just as much victims as you were. Sincerely, the residents of Cedar Ridge. There were over 30 names at the bottom. I folded the letter and placed it in my uncle's desk drawer, beside the deed he'd kept all those years. The cabins were leveled 2 weeks later. Volunteers from the neighborhood came to help. Bryce brought his own sledgehammer. I watched from the porch as the last log wall came down and thought about what my uncle would have said if he'd lived to see it, probably something along the lines of, "That's why you don't let snakes run the henhouse," and he'd have been right. 3 weeks after Gayla's arrest, the county held a public hearing to address the zoning corruption linked to the forged boundary overlay. It was held in a bland government building with flickering lights and a sagging ceiling tile, but the energy in that room crackled like a live wire. I arrived early, wearing my uncle's old canvas jacket, the one with a stitched patch from a long-defunct cattlemen's association. He'd always said it made people listen closer, and today I needed every edge. Inside, Travis stood near the front, flipping through a binder of parcel maps. He gave a nod when he saw me, but his expression was tight. I took a seat in the second row next to Erica, who had flown in to attend in person. She handed me a sealed envelope. "Affidavit from the handwriting analyst," she whispered. "It's conclusive." The signature wasn't even close to your uncle's. The notary's stamp was expired, 2 by 8 months. The county commissioner called the meeting to order with a hard bang of the gavel, then gestured to a projector screen behind her. "We are here to address multiple discrepancies in Parcel 14G, known locally as the Ellery Ranch. This hearing will determine whether those discrepancies were the result of clerical error or intentional manipulation." No one said a word. Then Travis stepped forward. He laid out everything. The midnight overlay upload, the lack of a corresponding state recording, the discrepancy between the county's GIS system and the official deeds. He brought up the zoning admin who had retired the year before, and mentioned that the login credentials used for the upload had been traced back to that account after retirement. The commissioner leaned forward. "Are you saying someone used a deactivated employee's credentials to falsify a property line?" Travis nodded once. "Without authorization, internal audit confirms it." Erica passed me a small slip of paper. On it was a name, Hal Vickers, the former zoning tech. Then the commissioner turned to me. "Mr. Ellery, you have the floor." I stood and approached the podium. My voice didn't shake, but I could feel the heat rising in my chest. I inherited my uncle's land, thinking it was untouched. I found cabins I never approved on ground my family has owned for decades. They were built using forged documents, funded by an HOA that had no right to touch this property, and leased for profit through a shell company. The woman who orchestrated it has already been arrested, but the deeper issue, how it was allowed to happen, hasn't been addressed. I want answers. And I want that overlay wiped from every record it was ever added to. There was silence for a beat. Then the commissioner motioned to the legal counsel seated beside her. He whispered something in her ear, then nodded. "The overlay will be deleted from county zoning maps immediately," she said. "This hearing will be referred to the state attorney general for further investigation into digital record tampering." The room buzzed with quiet murmurs as I stepped down. After the hearing, a man in a brown suit approached me in the parking lot. He introduced himself as a special investigator from the state's Office of Public Integrity. "We're looking into the possibility that Gayla Covington didn't act alone." that she had help inside the zoning department. I handed him a flash drive Erica had assembled, containing every document, email, and time-stamped screenshot we had. He thanked me and left without another word. Later that week, the interim HOA board invited me to a closed-door meeting. I only agreed to go because Bryce would be there, and he'd personally assured me the tone had shifted. When I walked into the community center, every chair was occupied. Most of them looked like people who hadn't slept well in weeks. A woman named Lorna, now acting president, stood. She held a copy of the HOA's operating agreement, one I hadn't seen before. "This version was never distributed," she said. "Gayla kept it off the books, but it shows she had full signing power over reserve funds without requiring a vote." The clause was inserted 2 months after she became president. Erica raised an eyebrow. "Was it ratified by a majority of homeowners?" "No," Lorna admitted. "We think she used proxy votes, some of them from people who moved away or passed on." I crossed my arms. "So what now?" "We're dissolving the HOA," Lorna said. "There's a clause that allows for full disbandment with a 2/3 majority. We've already collected the votes." She passed me a notarized resolution, stamped and signed by 43 homeowners. The HOA was done, permanently. Outside, Bryce caught up with me as I was heading back to the truck. "There's one more thing you should know. A few of us pooled some cash to help with the legal bill. We know this whole mess landed on you like a freight train." I shook my head. "Keep it. Use it to fix your neighborhood. You've got a chance to start over." He held out a hand. "Appreciate that, and for what it's worth, Gayla never scared me, but you're the reason she's not walking around like she owns the place anymore." 2 days later, the cabins came down for good, not just boarded up, demolished. The county sent a crew with excavators and flatbeds. I didn't watch this time. I spent the morning in the north pasture, clearing out rusted fencing with the radio playing low and the sun finally warming the soil. Around mid-afternoon, Travis showed up again. He didn't get out of his truck, just rolled down the window. "Thought you'd want to know," he said. "They arrested Hal Vickers this morning. Turns out he was getting monthly checks from Pine Haven Management in exchange for consulting." "Let me guess." "No consulting ever happened. None on record. But the payments were real. They're estimating close to $40,000 over 2 years. He shifted in his seat. "States pressing charges. Racketeering, conspiracy, falsification of records," I nodded. "Thanks for letting me know." As he drove off, I let the silence settle, the kind of silence that had weight to it, not empty but earned. I walked the tree line, stopping at the southern ridge. The area where the cabins once stood was bare now, just churned dirt and a few tire tracks. I picked up a clump of soil and let it crumble through my fingers. Later that evening, Erica and I sat on the porch while the sun dipped beneath the pines. She poured 2 glasses of rye and handed me one. "You know," she said, "most people wouldn't have fought this. They'd have sold the land or walked away." "My uncle didn't raise me like most people," I said. "Neither did this land." We clinked glasses. In the following weeks, the ranch settled into its rhythm again. The calls stopped. The mailbox stayed upright. And for the first time since I arrived, the only thing moving through the woods at night was deer, not men with gas cans. The county eventually sent me a settlement offer, compensation for the unauthorized use of the land, and a formal letter of apology. I didn't frame it, but I kept it filed away. Proof that the system, however slow, sometimes still worked. The last thing I did before winter set in was replant the corner markers, real ones this time. Steel stakes, flagged and GPS logged. I didn't want to leave any doubt for whoever came after me. Because if there's one thing I learned from this mess, it's that land remembers. Fences rot, roads fade, but soil holds the truth, and now mine does too.